Live from Los Angeles, California, this is The Lisa Murray Show. And with your host, Lisa Murray.
The day I felt like I really started living.
I don't have enough money to start this business.
I'm so tired. I hate it. I'm working all the time.
I'm not inspired when I'm worried about money.
Life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all.
I'm so sick of all these positive people talking about dreams. What about money? Like, how am I supposed to get the money?
What it's really about, it's about you pursuing what makes you come alive. It's about continually connecting with that energy and just keep doing that. Keep going towards that. That's what it's about. I need to give up. There's too many obstacles. I can't take this shit anymore. Ships are safe in the harbor, but that's not what ships are built for.
It feels really good to be my own boss.
I have dreams, damn it!
Hi guys, welcome back to the I Have Dreams Dammit podcast. This is Lisa, and I'm going to update you on a lot of stuff next week, but this week is the second part of my two-part interview with Benjamin Kintisch, the creator of Life Review, the Hospice Musical. In this part of the interview, he talks more about the actual musical, some of the characters that he was inspired to write the musical about. That was a weird way to say that, but you know what I mean. So it's really nice. And he actually sings a song with acoustic guitar, and I really love it. So you're going to hear the Death Talk podcast intro and outro. Don't get confused. This is the podcast matrix. All right. And I hope you guys are having a great week. I hope you love this episode as much as I do. And we will catch up next week. Thanks. Welcome to the podcast matrix. Welcome to the Death Talk podcast. The vision for this podcast is to break the culture of silence surrounding death and dying. I'm your host, Lisa Murray. Welcome back to the Death Talk podcast. This is Lisa, and today we have part 2 of my conversation with Benjamin Kintisch, and he is the creator of Life Review, the Hospice Musical. I really enjoyed this conversation. He actually sang a second song, and this time it's with an acoustic guitar, which is like my favorite thing ever. So I hope you get something out of this just like I did. And again, if you'd like to know more about anything we talk about in this episode, you can head over to deathtalkpodcast.com, and that's where the show notes are. This is episode number 13. We pick up today where we left off last week, right when Benjamin started to talk about the actual play, the musical, what it's about, and about some of the characters that stood out to him. I hope you enjoy. Thanks.
So I have in the play 4 patients who we meet along the way, as well as their plus ones. And so they all are dealing with their illness and their death in different ways. One younger man deals with anger and frustration. One woman wonders about, will life continue after she dies? I talk about it as sort of an anticipatory grief, wondering if her adult son's going to be okay. There's one man who's a religious man, and he thinks about his death in terms of grace and gratefulness to God for creating his body and the blessings of his body. I mean, we so often think of the body as failing or the body as breaking down. Yes, that occurs, but think about the miracle of how many thousands, maybe millions of hours our body works properly before it breaks down. How many miles we've walked in our life. Or to use the words of that song, with these hands I played for the Lord. This is a church musician, by the way. When the preacher spoke, I prayed with a chord. And so he used his fingers, the gifts that God gave him of music, of his body, to elevate the prayers and the sermons of others. We all have blessings in our life that we can celebrate as we face our end. And one patient who we don't hear in the shorter virtual version of the play, but we do hear in the full-length musical, he's an affable guy based on a real-life person who actually wanted to make friends all the way until the end of his life. Again, like we all will deal with our own mortality as it comes upon us. And if we are of sound mind, we will have the opportunity to engage with it in whatever way we're ready to. But this man, who was based on a real life person, he had approximately 1 week of sound mind. He had a rapidly spreading infection that he chose not to deal with aggressive surgeries. And so he had about a week to live. He didn't know how long he would live, but I kid you not, the man made at least half a dozen friends in his last week on Earth. And everyone in the hospice knew this guy by the time he died because he was cracking jokes, flirting with the ladies and telling sports stories at the fellas. Yes, I know that's very gendered and of a time, but, he was a 85-year-old guy, and everyone found him pretty harmless. But not just harmless, but loving and friendly. So I wrote a song inspired by that called My Last Week on Earth, parentheses, Time to Make a New Friend. And it's in the style of a Frank Sinatra or a Perry Como kind of, da 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 da. It sort of swings.
Yeah.
Again, a Michael Miller melody, and he loves Sinatra, so he had fun with that one. But what a unique and interesting way to deal with your own death. You've chosen, of sound mind, to move to hospice because you're not going to do any more dramatic surgeries. And so you still have your great personality. So what do? You ask the orderly about his wife, who's still in Haiti. Or you ask the nurse, tell me about Dominican Republic. Yes, we had a lot of folks from all over the Caribbean working where I was near New York City. But when, just showing that interest in people who cared for him, he would hang out in the common area and sort of make friends with the spouses. Because, some people who have Parkinson's, they take a long time to die. So they might be in hospice for 8-10 months, recertified and whatnot. So there were some characters who were just there all the time, including the healthy spouses. So this one guy, he was only in hospice 1 week, but he made friends with all those plus ones. It was beautiful to see. And I'm telling this story. This is an audio, not a video medium, Lisa. But I have a very warm and genuine smile on my face as I tell the story of this real person whose name I am not sharing to protect his anonymity, but he is made alive again on the stage through the power of musical theater. And it teaches us something about how we might cheerfully engage with our own end. No, it is not easy to die, and I heard one of my hospice colleagues quip once, dying is not for the faint of heart. And I make a bunch of jokes to that effect in the play. Yes, gallows humor runs throughout. By the way, I want to mention, Lisa, if you and your listeners have noticed, I've cracked a lot of jokes about my play and about death and dying throughout. That is purposeful. We make jokes to deal with what is uncomfortable. If you think about the favorite categories of taboo jokes and humor, it's the same categories I mentioned before, right? Sex, drugs / alcohol, rock and roll / hedonism, and now I guess maybe politics, so that's kind of a third rail for polite company. But why do we joke about these taboo topics? It's because we don't know how to have adult conversations about them without the disarming fun of humor. Lisa, as a podcast host, I know that you are more skilled than a normal person in talking about death and dying. Maybe that's part of the reason you have this project. And I like to think that I've written some songs about death and dying that will open people's hearts to have some of these difficult conversations. So maybe the music helps. I know for sure the joking helps, because it's uncomfortable. Let's be real. It is uncomfortable to know that you and I and everyone we love will die either before or after we do. That's an uncomfortable fact, but that's some reality right there. In fact, that's the reason why my opening song is so funny. It's called Spoiler Alert, parentheses, everybody dies in the end. And the whole song is a list song of all the different people, and they all die in the end. You know, the lowliest pauper, the loftiest king, the hero and villain of each tall tale, the sailor who battled the full force gale. Spoiler alert, everybody dies in the end. You know, and the truth is, no matter the story, the hero and the villain, they both die in the end. No matter who they are in the play, yes, we only see some of them die on stage, but even those characters who survive the final curtain, we know that the actors and actresses who play them are mortal humans. The person to our right and left, if we're sitting in the audience, they are also mortal. And it may make a catch in our chest to think about the person we love more than life itself dying either before or after us. However, that's the reality. That's the human condition. And that's why Spoiler Alert is at once a very funny song and also a painful icebreaker to start the show, because you need to know that we're in for it, guys, in this show called Life Review and in this show called Being a Human on Planet Earth. Everybody dies in the end. That's right. How everyone's play ends. Now, we don't know how many acts we have. We don't know which characters come and go. I could just spin a whole metaphor for you. But, like, it's true. We don't know the story of our play before it is written, before we play it out. But we do know that it does end at a certain point. That's also what makes life precious, the fact that this time on Earth is finite. So there you have it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the insight into some of the real life people and their stories and how that inspired the characters and the songs and the stories also. And also I was thinking about when you were talking about your wife's position, or what you call it, guidance counselor.
Yeah, she's a guidance counselor. Now they call her a college counselor because she focuses on college admissions. But let me tell you, if you're a high achieving 17-year-old, that is life and death, whether you get into Penn, right?
Yeah. And I think that dreams come to us, you know, like they say, a size too big so we can grow into them. So you saying you didn't really know, you know, what would be involved. I can say with absolute certainty that I had the exact same journey, and I know many other people have as well. And on my other podcast, I Have Dreams Dammit, I do talk about that. And
I think you want to book me on that one too, Lisa, because I have a dream called making a musical.
Nice. Well, this is actually going to be the first episode that I'm going to post on both as a bridge episode, because you followed this feeling, this thing, whatever it was, and you followed it. It was like breadcrumbs, and it's led you to this perfect. I mean, just the way you describe all of this, you're the perfect person for this. Oh. And the fact that you really didn't know how big it was going to be or how many people you'd have to involve. I mean, that's perfect, because if you knew, you probably wouldn't have done it. There's no way. You would have been like, or you would have tried to change some parts of it or whatever. So that's an interesting insight. And I would love to talk more about that creative journey in a more focused way, because absolutely. making a dream. What was the name of the show? I've Got a Dream, Damn It. Or I Have Dreams, Damn It.
I Have Dreams, Damn It. I love that title. It's such a good hook, because until you make your dream real, it's just your crazy idea. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that's been important for me as I've gone on this most unusual COVID theater journey is to believe that this work of art, this Life Review, the Hospice Musical, it needs to be heard, it needs to be seen. It has great power to transform people's hearts in terms of death and dying and illness and grief. And that is something that I really believe in my heart of hearts. And that is a mission that is so much bigger than like my sort of petty little ambition to get like a Tony. Like that would be pretty cool. And honestly, if someday I get a Tony, Lisa, you can save this audio, certainly this audio, and then say, I talk to him when. But even if I don't get as big as that, if I only open someone's heart whose heart has been broken by grief, and I crack it open to let them cry for the first time, maybe that will be impactful enough to make a difference in their life. So I do hope that even in this weird virtual tour time, we are able to share this work. And it's been, I gotta say, strange as it's been, it's also been very exciting. And if I could, Lisa, would it be okay to share with your listeners a tiny bit about what Virtual Tour 2021 is? Because people might not know what a musical looks like in a virtual environment.
Well, first, I just want to say, so you finished this right when COVID started.
Oh,
right?
My God. Yeah. So that's kind of the crazy thing about Life Review. Though the more I tell the story, the more I discover just how many people had great things that were about to happen, at least as they tell it now. I swear I was about to get my Oscar right before COVID hit. Just kidding, folks. I was only nominated. I was not expected to win. But no, seriously, we had been working on this project for approximately 5.5 years, including 2 live workshop presentations. One was in Portland, Oregon at Reed College at a National Jewish Education Conference. That was 10 songs and 5 friends who were like professional Jewish musicians, all wonderful vocalists. We had 4 hours of rehearsal, and then we performed for 100 people.
And when was that?
That was in summer 2019. Okay. And then in January of 2020, only 6 months later, I did a full rewrite, expanded it, added dialogue and more characters, then got local community theater actors, more, let's say, more appropriate for the race and age of the characters they were playing, which was wonderful and fun. We also rehearsed for 8 hours. We got a musical director, live piano and drums, and we presented that workshop with books in hand for 250 people, 14 songs, 2 hours and change with an intermission. So like a fully fleshed out musical. Now it was not staged, so we were like stand with book in hand, talk to each other, not so much movement, no choreography for the dance numbers, but it felt like a play. That happened in January of 2020.
Now, is that the video that's on your website?
So the video on the website includes footage from that performance. Okay, that's right. Okay. So, and since you asked, lifereviewmusical.com, LIFEREVIEW musical.com, all one word, is the website, and you can see a great trailer video that includes live footage from our performance in Columbia, Maryland, just over 1.5 years ago. Here's the exciting news, Lisa. We are now in the midst of our virtual tour, which includes amazing podcasts like this one. We've performed for 2 theater organizations at the school level, 1 middle school drama group and 1 high school drama group, with a Q&A with the creator. I've performed for, we are doing the main show that we are touring with is called a Virtual Cabaret. It's Life Review, Stories, and Songs. So that's a 45-minute, one-man version of the full-length musical that features 8 songs performed live. I put that on from my basement with great sound equipment, so I sound and look good. And I'm able to broadcast that via Zoom or similar platforms for any organization in the country, churches, synagogues, training groups, professional groups. And I've had the pleasure of performing for a synagogue, a large Jewish nursing home in D.C., and that was exciting because they put it on the cable channel, so hundreds of people had it on their TV.
Oh, cool.
And the activities directors were able to moderate a Q&A. And of course, I also have some educational modules available. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're involved with a hospice, palliative care, or chaplaincy organization, I can present this program and then do a training with your people on grief, on caring for the caregiver, on spiritual issues at end of life. And if you're part of a music or theater group, we are looking for virtual and in real life venues for the coming year. And this perhaps is the most exciting news of all. While we haven't finalized the contract to announce the place, I can say we are in discussions for our first live performance for later in the summer, August 2021, outside.
Wow.
At an undisclosed location.
Exciting.
But it's exciting because I think news like this helps us all feel like something resembling normal life will return. We know that certain aspects of this pandemic have changed life inexorably, and it will be interesting to see what those things are. But for sure, people want to see live theater. They want to be seeing other people. So it looks like we're probably going to have this sort of simple outside stage, 40 or 50 VIPs who give a donation for a fundraiser. We'll get to see there in person, masked up and spread out. And then the whole internet is invited for a donation wherever you are, and you can stream, and we'll raise money for this nature center as well as for a food bank here in Howard County. So
that's great.
More details will be forthcoming. If you're interested in the project, I am on Instagram at Life Review Musical. And if you visit the website, lifereviewmusical.com, there is a get in touch form. So if you have any questions about the project, if you want to know more about bookings, or if you can think, I'm still in the phase where I love meeting people and talking about the project. So even if you can't book me, if you have a friend or colleague who you think I should talk to, drop me a line via the website. I'm so excited to meet you or meet that person who I'm supposed to meet, right? And that's a big way to help this project come along. Certainly, if you're able to invite us to be in your organization virtually for now, or, we are going to be looking at in-person bookings probably for 2022, if we're talking inside, or later in 2021 outside. So be in touch. It's an exciting time for the project.
Absolutely. And, if it doesn't make sense, even after the restrictions are lifted, if, like you say, there's some educational area or something where they can't necessarily travel, or have you guys travel to them. I love the fact that the virtual performance is an option still, though, Absolutely. Well, Lisa, this is one of those positive things from an otherwise rotten year. Right. I think, like so many people, when I first heard of this idea that you could take a class through a computer, I was like, that sounds like nonsense. Guess what? I make a full-time salary teaching through a computer, teaching chorus, no less. Like, how do you do that? You do that because that's your job, and you're in a pandemic, and you learn to adapt. And I guess on a teaching podcast, I would tell you how I do it. But point being, 2 years ago, Lisa, I did not want to be doing any kind of theater through a computer platform. But because we have learned to do that, now I am able to bring this work to people all over the world. In fact, I'm proud to say that just a week ago, I did a charity performance, a benefit performance in partnership with Denver Hospice, presented by one of your peer podcasts, End of Life University, that's based out of the Denver region. And we were able to donate several $100s to the hospice as a portion of proceeds from the event. And people dialed in from all over the country. So I feel like there's a lot of interest in the musical itself, and a lot of opportunities for people in this unique new medium of Zoom, etc., to engage with theater, to engage with music, and then to really have some thoughtful discussions afterwards about the nature of grief, about the nature of love and loss, because we all go through it in different ways. And I do hope that this musical, Life Review, the Hospice Musical, is helpful to people as they walk through their grief journeys and as they support their loved ones as they do the same. Absolutely. And, as a filmmaker, I have a lot of clients. I do video production, and I've been trying to get everybody to embrace, the internet and Zoom and all these different things to get their work out to more people. And so, of course, COVID has actually pushed us all there. And for that reason, I am happy for that, because then we can experience things like Life Review, the Hospice Musical. So lifereviewmusical.com. I love that.
Lifereviewmusical.com, at Life Review Musical on Instagram. And that feed, by the way, has musical related stuff, but also some houseplants and some dogs. So you've been warned.
Nice. Okay, good. And now I want to know, will you do one more song for us to sort of
Oh, absolutely.
Yay!
Something uplifting? Yeah.
You pick.
I'll end with something uplifting. Though this time I'm going to grab my lyrics. Pro tip number 3, if you're performing live on the radio, bring your lyrics. 1 second.
Are you on Clubhouse? I feel like I'm asking everybody that nowadays. Well, originally it was just for Apple, and now they've opened it up for Android. So Clubhouse is an app. It's an audio-only social media. It's really different from any other social media. I can tell you more about that later, but I do want to let you know on Tuesday nights from 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific time, I open up a room called Positive Death Talk, and I have a Positive Death Talk club on Clubhouse. And if you'd like to just come and talk about different topics that pertain to the topic of death, I welcome you or invite you to come and check it out. So it's Tuesday nights on Clubhouse, and just search Positive Death Talk Club, and then you'll find it there. I look forward to meeting you. Let me know you heard me on the podcast, and I look forward to talking with you. What would you like to sing as your last song and a half?
Right. You're funny, Lisa, because I did say song and a half. So the last full song is called Lullaby to Rest in Peace. So I will, just to help the listeners imagine it, I know I haven't given you a full synopsis of the play, but it is about a young man who's a chaplain in a residential hospice, and he befriends the hospice patients, hearing their stories and also dealing with his own grief journey. So it's his favorite patient of all, Leroy, the retired church musician, who is dying, and our hero, Rabbi David, plays him this song late in the play. It's late in the day, and before Rabbi David heads to his car to drive home, he pops into Leroy's room for a quick visit. Leroy is his very elderly friend. They talk together quietly, and after a few playful pleasantries, Leroy says, "Rabbi, I'm feeling tired." Rabbi David offers to play him a lullaby to help him fall asleep. Leroy nods weakly and smiles in the most subtle way. Rabbi David sits near the bed and plays the following song. Lay on back, rest your head, lay thee down, safe in bed. Close your eyes, darling dear, you drift away, I'll stay right here. Time to sing a lullaby, sing a soft, sincere goodbye. Tuck you in for a dream so sweet, heaven awaits, your life's complete. Hold your hand, wipe your tear, kiss your face, soothe your fear. You are holy, your life's been blessed. Now my love, it's time to rest. Time to sing a lullaby, sing a soft, sincere goodbye. Tuck you in for a dream so sweet, heaven awaits, your life's complete. Rest, rest in peace, rest, rest in rest in peace. Rest in peace.
That's beautiful.
Thank you, Lisa. You know, when I wrote that song, I was thinking a lot about how sometimes we use euphemisms when we talk about death. I'm not a fan of euphemism, but I understand, as a guy who writes songs, I understand why we humans like to operate in the land of poetry sometimes rather than prose. So a lot of the poetry around death and dying are sleeping images, you know. We put our dog to sleep, we don't euthanize him, and so forth. And a lot of us like dream of dying in our sleep, like that would be the best way to die. And certainly there's that image of a forever sleep. So I was aware of that poetry and that imagery, and I also kind of had, I don't remember where and when I came up with this song exactly, but I knew I wanted a lullaby because I actually used to play lullabies for my patients in hospice care all the time. Not necessarily because they were like, Cantor, put me to sleep with a lullaby, but just because like beautiful, soothing songs are often appreciated by people who want something that's soft and soothing. So lullabies were a big part of my repertoire as a chaplain who traveled around with a guitar in his backpack. So lullabies were on the mind, and also some of the images or the words in the song, they are so simple and so loving. And it's meant to really express what it felt like to be a chaplain in the pre-COVID era. Of course, when I wrote this, I didn't know COVID would come. But some of the stuff in the song, hold your hand, wipe your tear, kiss your face, soothe your fear. Well, 3 of those 4 items you can't really do right now. And that's a difficult part of chaplaincy during a pandemic. But the idea of being close to the person who's seriously ill or dying is at the essence of this song. We are not afraid anymore at this point in the play of a death. We know it's going to be sad and we know it's going to hurt, but we're also going to sit with it. If there is a message about grief and death and dying in the play, it's not only that it occurs to everyone, but that we can and will get through it with patience, with love, with the support of our loved ones, and if we are people of faith, perhaps with the support of our faith community or our prayers. But regardless, I think even if you're not a person of faith, like the fictional Leroy was while he lived, we can all relate to how soothing it is to hear a sweet lullaby and listen to a baby fall asleep. Wouldn't that be a nice way to go? So I decided to put that on stage and stage a death scene, kind of like the fantasy of how we want a death to go. And in a way that's satisfying. It's also very painful because this is our favorite character in the play, but he has to die because he's 102 and, you know, it's a hospice. He's got to go. It's his time. But and the last thing in that moment, it's not just that he has to die, but also that the rabbi has to cry for him. He has to grieve and grieve openly. He has to crack his heart open. So for all of you who are listening and struggling in your grief journey right now, this is as far from a plug as could be, and this is more just Cantor Ben, the chaplain, talking to you. I encourage you to cry when you need to, and to tell the stories when you need to sing their favorite songs or listen to their favorite songs when you need to, eat their favorite foods, go to their favorite places. That's kind of how you defy mortality and keep your deceased loved one alive, is by celebrating their memory, maybe experiencing some of the things that they loved. I think sometimes we make the mistake of eliminating the things that we loved because it reminds us of the person. I went through this after my first ever breakup, and a very helpful shrink pointed out that if in a year and a half of being in love with this girl, I had a lot of good experiences, and then for the rest of my life, I could never do those things I did with her in a year and a half, well, that wouldn't be fair for the rest of my life. And like, it's sort of a funny notion, but you know, when you break up, you're like, I never want to go to a restaurant again. I never want to be in love again. I'll never love again. But of course you fall in love again. And of course, you know, if you're lucky enough to have a little bit of extra money, you'll go to a restaurant again, even if you used to do that with your old sweetheart. And so it goes with our loved ones when they die. I think of the different people who I have known and loved in my life, both those who died when I was a younger person and those people who I've known and lost since becoming an adult. The fact of their death is sad. It's not as sad now as it was when I first heard about it, right? When it was raw and shocking, it was much more painful. But the fact that there are people who I have loved who are no longer walking this earth, that is an objectively sad thing that will probably never get less sad. It might get less painful, but it's always going to be sad. But I'm able to keep them alive beyond their death by keeping their memories alive. It may feel a little bit like a cliche, so forgive me. But the whole idea behind Life Review, the Hospice Musical, is that the people are living beyond their imminent death by sharing their stories, by giving a glimmer of their glory, how you got to here and now. We are here to hear you now. So all of us, we want our stories to be heard. And I hope that people can really find joy and comfort in this work of theater, and really think about their own stories. How do you want to be remembered? How do you want to be celebrated?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for everything you just said. It's really important, I think, to remember to keep people alive that we loved. And I love the way you just put everything. And I was just thinking about my brother loved the dessert bananas Foster. And I was thinking about something my grandmother liked. And I was like, I should go to a restaurant and order those things.
Absolutely. I love that, because the converse, I mean, I was sort of teasing my 20-year-old heartbroken self. But imagine if I had actually decided to ban all future restaurant eating or all future love. I would not have gotten my second girlfriend or the third girlfriend who became my wife, you know, and I would have missed a lot of great meals. It's confusing with, and of course, the analogy to the lost loved one is an apt one, because that is a kind of grief. I hope your listeners are aware of this, that when grief is not limited to those who die. Grief is, I've heard it described as all the complicated and painful feelings around loss or stressful change that often implies a loss. So I can tell you, even though, thank God, I did not lose anyone from COVID, my play suffered major creative losses, and that was devastating for me. I literally cried over what happened to my play. Now, it didn't end. It's not over. I'm here talking with you, and I'm grateful for it. But me and a lot of probably thousands of other creative people had to deal with grief for dreams deferred. Or business people had to deal with grief for businesses failed or sputtering into oblivion. People who, just like teenagers who have been, I teach middle school. Well, imagine if you were in 7th grade last spring and you're like, oh, sweet, next year I'm in 8th grade. I'm king of the school. This is the worst 8th grade year ever. And you're always going to be grieving. I mean, maybe people don't look forward to 8th grade as much as, say, senior year, but you get the idea. Like, people, even if they didn't suffer a so-called traumatic loss like a death, people are grieving the things that they didn't do, the places they didn't go. It's called regret, or you might call it regret. And I think it's important for us all to recognize that the grief that comes with losing a loved one to death or maybe to divorce, that could be devastating. But in some cases, other kinds of losses can lead to devastating and paralyzing grief. It seems like we had talked earlier in our conversation, Lisa, one of the upsides of COVID is more and more people becoming comfortable with the tech that we've used to navigate these times, like Zoom and Google
Right.
Meet and so forth. I think one of the other things is a lot more of us are talking about grief and death in a way that just wasn't... I just feel like there's been an explosion in these conversations in the last year or two. Because so many more people are dealing with either the specter of people their own age dying or, in the case, my parents are early 70s, they're healthy, and they went to a few funerals this year, sort of more than they might expect to. And so for someone like them, where they know that they're, quote, kind of old, but all of a sudden you feel a lot older when a few people die. So that experience is going on all over the country, I believe, for people of all different generations. Whether you're actually elderly or maybe I'm 40, but my parents are having a different conversation about death and dying than they might have 2 years ago. So it's an interesting time. Yeah,
I also
please.
think it's just a loss of way of life. And I think that,
Yes.
for me, when my friend was killed and then my brother died, it was all my life stopped. Everything in my life stopped. And I at the time it was so horrible. Obviously, I mean, it still is horrible, but the gift of that was that it stopped, that I wasn't just on automatic, just paying the bills and doing all the work stuff and everything. I actually did stop and look around and think about the topography of my life and what I wanted and what I didn't want. And I think I've heard a lot of people talking more about that. Instead of every day having to take the kids to school and do this and go to job and and commute, people now have more choices. You can switch jobs, you can switch locations, you can, maybe work virtually or maybe change your job altogether, do something that you've always wanted to do. And I think it's been a great wake up, just like losses, just like any losses, wakes you up. So I think it's been in that way a very good thing.
Yes. People are finding opportunities to be creative that they never knew they would have to find, and in so doing, they're just discovering new possibilities. I would have never guessed in a million years ago, 2 years ago, I would have never guessed in a million years, 2 years ago, that I would be doing a charity benefit for a hospice in Denver, because Denver's really far from Maryland. But hey, with the internet, I'm happy to bring the show to anywhere with a good internet connection. And I would also remind people to switch from the shameless plugging to the public service announcement. One of the ideas in the show that I want all of your listeners to walk away with today is that giving someone else the opportunity to tell their story, even well in advance of their deathbed, is one of the biggest and best gifts that you can give. Perhaps many of your listeners are familiar with StoryCorps if they listen to public radio, and there are other websites that are similar, inviting people to make audio recordings of interviewing loved ones. I think that's a great project. You can do it the high-tech way with an audio recording on the phone or an app. You can do it the old-fashioned way and talk with the person and write it down. Whatever it is, it's never too soon to have those conversations, but it can be too late if you never talk with the person. So if all of this talk today about reflecting on your life and what has mattered to you, if it's piqued any curiosity in you, are any of those questions you would like to ask of your own parents if they're still alive? Or if you are the elderly generation, Do you wish your adult children would ask you some of those questions? Well, pick up the phone and call your loved one and share your stories. You will never, ever regret it.
I love that. Thank you so much for speaking with me today. And I wish you the best of luck with your virtual tour and with your live performances, because I feel like there's going to be more than just the August 20th one. But if you are in that area, and even if you're not, make sure you head over to Life Review Musical, alloneword.com, and just keep up on what is happening with the Life Review Hospice Musical in terms of when it might come to you in person or when it might be on Broadway or off Broadway, or
from your mouth to God's feminine ears, Lisa.
I really love what you're doing, and I think it has such a wonderful energy to it. So even if it's just a Tony of the Heart, it's a Tony winning musical performance.
I will take it. Can I put that on my CV? Recipient of a Tony of the Heart Award from the Lisa Murray Death Podcast. I appreciate the opportunity so much to chat with you, Lisa. It has been such a joy to talk and to share the music with your listeners. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. If you would like to learn more about this episode, you can head over to deathtalkpodcast.com, and this is episode number 13. Follow Death Talk Podcast on Instagram at Death Talk Podcast, on Facebook, Death Talk Podcast, and on Twitter, Death Talk Pod. Thanks for listening.